Here we go. We are back in the studio. Charlie Hooler is back in town. He's back in Sussex by the Sea from his travels in Ireland. How are you, Charlie?
I'm in a very good way, thank you, Pete.
You're very good. You're very good. And do you know what? We are still celebrating the fact that the Foyne Jones Show, this little podcast, is now on its 8th season. You know, well over 122, 23 episodes. We're rocking and rolling all the time. And thanks to our sponsors, E.T. Clay Products and the wonderful David Blitz, who loves talking bricks, and Leyton Orient Football Club. We've got this show, and today we've welcomed another guest from Essex. He's travelled down today to be part of the podcast, to be part of the show. And there's lots of reasons for that. And one of those reasons is the builders merchant industry. Another one of those reasons is well-being and fitness and wellness at work. So I want to say a big, big welcome. It's his first podcast. So Darren Dormer of WORKFIT, welcome to the Foyne Jones Show. Welcome to Plus X. You've already seen someone meet in triumph and disaster. Charlie Hooler. He's turned the tripod situation round.
Yep, brilliant. Well, Great to be here, Pete. Looking forward to it. Your 123rd or 4th time. This is my first, so... ready to see what happens.
It's the amount of people we get on here, and they're like, you know, we and Charlie have two objectives when we start the podcast, and they're very simple. One is that you arrived in Brighton, you come upstairs and you come into the show with a smile on your face, and you're definitely smiling. So we've achieved that.
Yeah, 6-1 so far.
At the end of the recording, you've even got a bigger smile on the face because it's all over and you can go home.
We're a bit nervous, but
that's what it is. We can work with that, Darren. So let's dive into, I guess, the here and now, just for the benefit of the uneducated or people who won't have seen me kind of promoting the brand and everything to do with WORKFIT on LinkedIn. Let's just get a bit of history about yourself and the WORKFIT itself. Bring it to life for us, please.
Well, there's not too much to say about me, but background in construction for most of my years, and really more recently came up with this new product, WORKFIT, and that's providing energy and good nutrition for the construction sector specifically. So historically, a lot of nutrition and energy in the sports arena, and there's a lot of energy consumed in the construction sector, but there was nothing specifically for the construction sector that gives the construction workers that extra bit of nutrition they need. It's not easy to work. It's not easy to eat smart when you're under pressure on the go all the time. So really what we're trying to do here with WORKFIT is bringing accessibility, bringing convenience. Convenience is a key thing to tradies and contractors. Always on the go, always under pressure, always up against things. So that's really what WORKFIT is trying to do, is make that accessible, give people a bit more of what they need in the way of nutrition, help them get through the day better, so they feel better at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you look at that and you break that into accessibility, which is the word you're talking about there, the amount of construction workers, I mean, I've just seen them just now, you know, when I parked in the car park next door, you know, they're channeling into a supermarket, which could be one of many, but they're channeling in there, they're channeling out. You can see they're rushing, and you can see they're there. That accessibility to the right product is really important, isn't it? Really important.
There's two things. First of all, the point you made was the right product, and then making it accessible. They're always under pressure. The tradies are always up against it, be it the customer they're up against, be it the contractor they're up against, be it the weather, or be it the clock. Every single job is different, always getting a new problem. It's not like a regular office job where generally the same things happen, and if there's something that is unknown, you can sort it out. But with a tradie, it's always suddenly needs more materials, or suddenly the weather's set them back a day, but they've still got the same deadline. So all these problems are there, but it's a question of that makes convenience essential and accessibility essential, so that they can get this product. It's transportable. They can have it with them. They can have it on the go, rather than breaking their routine or going without or taking just what's available. There's so much available. Food everywhere you go, isn't there? Most of it's pretty bad. So this is an opportunity to bring something that's a bit better for them to keep them going.
And keeping the construction industry going, keeping it moving, looking at well-being at work, that's becoming more and more talked about. It's a conversation lots of businesses are having. I have it in my own business. What can I be doing to make it a better place to work? How flexible can I be with my work, with my team? What will inspire and what will motivate? And those key words when you're talking about inspiration and motivation, we spend a lot of time at work. We were talking about downstairs. I spend probably more time working now than I've ever done, but I enjoy what I do. So then you've got that feeling, well, is it work? I think it's work, but is this work? I'm having a chat with some nice people and we're talking about in an industry I'm passionate about. Looking for sources of inspiration. I must ask, because I ask all the founders and all the people that are in here that have built these brands and businesses, and you're at your stage of the journey, and we'll come into that. What was the real why behind the WORKFIT brand?
During COVID, I lost my just beginning of COVID, had a couple of contracts that fell flat, so I was left without anything to do. So I was doing another building project and came across a guy that started doing food. And it's during that moment in time that it became clear to me that there just isn't this provision in the market. So I did quite a bit of research, looking what was available, and became clear that somewhere in the merchanting sector there isn't that provision. And also then married with that is that the merchanting sector has massively starting to reinvent itself. It's a bit prehistoric, but it's starting to...
We're trying. It's
Darren. Becoming a lot more focused on the contractor. And so it's really looking at that opportunity and introducing something that isn't there at the moment for the convenience and for the benefit of the contractor. The other side of it is that it's not so much just buying it for yourself, but the point you touched on earlier about buying it for or getting it for your staff to help them do their jobs better, give them a better day, help them feel better at the end of the day. So a couple of points there really that really coincided. One was that the massive increase in nutrition. That's one thing during COVID I stumbled on, was the benefits of better nutrition. So that was a big key thing. Managed to sort myself out a bit. And so those two things really came together, and I saw that the massive growth in nutrition, absolutely vast when you get into it, and pulling those things together, just saw the alignment of those two points, that the traditional contractor has lived on the big English breakfast. So it's taking something a bit better than that. The tradie has sharpened themselves up, become a lot more professional. Not that the old guys weren't professional, but there was a different level of professionalism.
I think that's coming through as well. The sons of the people that are setting their business up now, the younger generation coming through, the new customers, they have different lifestyles. They're looking for different things. They're used to ordering online. It's normal for them. Yeah. But I remember when I was working for a merchant. Most people know I worked there. When I worked for the Green and Gold of Travis Perkins, and we launched like the first to pay, click and collect and ordering online. These were like game changers, but the customers just couldn't understand it. Like, well, no, we just want to turn up at 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'll wait in the queue. I'll have some banter. I'll pick my gear and I'll go off. And now people are in you're seeing lots of other startups that are delivering tools within an hour. They're delivering paint and light side materials within a couple of hours, and they're making that train. They're partnering with some of the big delivery brands out there, and you're seeing that's livening things up. But our industry, Darren, is nothing without the people within it. So if we can have products that are going to help the people feel better, get the people thinking about making the right choices and how that will lead, that's going to be good. And that's going to be good for everyone involved in the industry. So it's great to understand the WORKFIT concept from that side. What was it, a challenge getting it to the position it is now? Was there many sleepless nights? Charlie mentioned the eureka moment. Going from that eureka moment in the timeline to where you are now, how did that play out?
There's a lot of researching the market. Very, very difficult to test the market because there's nothing there already. But then been a lot of challenges and a lot of time into product development. So we're getting the right products, getting products with the right content, products that are actually going to do something. We can't reinvent the food chain, but so coming up with products that are convenient, that are accessible, and are maybe a bit indulgent, something that a bit of comfort food, that's what contractors like, is something that's going to keep them going through the day, but something that will help with your focus, help with your concentration, something that will help with your energy, something that will help with your immunity. So all these different things, taking it on from we're not looking at reproducing confectionery. We are talking about nutrition and really an opportunity for contractors to make their health a priority without having to sacrifice time or effort. It's not easy to put the extra time in sometimes it requires to be healthy, if you know what I mean.
I think I know this from my own journey. Sorry, Charlie, I won't bore you with it, but my own fitness journey has spectacular highs and real god awful lows down there. And I think I would say this publicly, actually. I think it's arguably harder to eat healthy and make healthy choices than it is to make unhealthy choices. And there's a mindset there. But when you go into you mentioned the greasy spoon, and I grew up in that era of real greasy spoons. Do you know what I mean? Think Fools and Horses, think Minder. Yeah. That's the era of greasy spoons I'm familiar with. Now, there are healthy choices. I can get my avocado smash. I can get different. He's laughing. He's from Brighton. He's from Hove. He's from the home of the avocado. But that's a personal choice. And for me, it's then committing, and it's committing to the lifestyle. If you can make those small steps and those small changes, it can help you as a person.
But what you'll find is that I've found myself is that you can make those commitments and you even make some good habits. But the thing that kills those habits and the conflict is when pressure comes. So be it short-term pressure or long-term pressure, it might be work, it might be long hours, having to start early. When your routine gets busted and the pressure starts to tell, that's when those good habits start to fall away. And they fall away much quicker than you pick them up. That's the struggle. And so that's really what WORKFIT tries to help, is get people into good habits by making it convenient. So it's not so much of it. Excuse me. The avocado smash is great, but it's not very portable until somebody puts it in a wrap. But so convenience and working around the pressure side of things has got to be key, making it convenient so it can be done on the go, because the pressure is the biggest. Loads of people would love to be healthy, but it's not always easy to be healthy. People would love to put the exercise in, but when you've suddenly got to fight the traffic on the way home, and you've had to work an extra hour late to get the job done, and that repeats and repeats and repeats.
Do you know what? Even simple things like traffic. Like, we were joking in the lift on the way up, and I was talking about my journey here. You made it from mid Essex in Chelmsford quicker than I've made it from just a few miles up the coast. And the main denominator of that was the lovely person who's learning to drive a bus. And I found myself getting really stressed. And I'm like, why am I getting stressed? I'm still on time, but why am I doing it? And that does have an impact, because it goes into other choices. My son says this all the time. It's something that's pushed into them. My youngest son is that no plan survives contact. And actually, I know that's a military saying, but it's so real in everything. I could write down my running plan. I could run down this. I could run down that. But if I have a situation which I'm being pulled in or I've got to react to, you get drawn, and it's very hard to be able, and I wish I could do it better, but it's very hard to take that breath and come away and look at it objectively. Actually, you can, but training your mind to do that and having the right habits, that's a challenge for the entire industry. And you are, we're focusing very much on the builders merchant population and the builders merchant community, but there's a wider spin-off to the construction industry itself as well, isn't it? In terms of improving the well-being, and I guess the the impact of what work and life can mean to everyone. So everyone's got it different. Everyone's got different, and we go there. I was saying, Charlie, to Darren, that I'm lucky as a business owner that I can prioritise my time to take my dog for a walk, go for a run, maybe share that run on LinkedIn to use it for some social content. So use my fitness activity as a PR type activity and to motivate others. I'm not that quick and I'm not that in shape and I'm not that good, but I'm giving it a go. I get people down that message me going like, "You've inspired me to go to run this weekend." I'm like, "Why?" Again, because you're out there doing it, and I'm thinking, if you can do it, I can do it. And I'm like, well, that's great. And I think that's something we could really work from here, because if we get that momentum with this brand and your product, it could really grow. I'm very excited for the future for you, but I guess not as I don't have all the challenges that you have in terms of getting there, because I don't think you speak to many people who don't like the concept of the product or don't enjoy the products. But it's getting that moving as well. It's the challenge for any startup, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of positive, enthusiastic response to the provision. The need is obvious. Being able to have something with you that's easy to eat, on the go, accessible where you want it. But it is just a question of getting traction, slowly changing habits. It's so easy to resort to type, isn't it? But key point you mentioned earlier was stress. Stress is such a huge thing in the construction sector. The whole time everything's conspiring against you, and that causes stress, that causes pressure. And the other thing you mentioned was the military. Construction is like a military operation, and there's so many things that go wrong with that. But so all the pressures, it's like fighting a micro war, not just with the work, with your environment, and with other people. You've got to cooperate, and a lot of stress comes from working with people. But if food can help you keep an even mood, a good balance, that's all going to help maintain that stress and get you working more efficiently, working more productively.
I'll tell you a story about that. There's a couple of brilliant girls that work with me, Holly and Jodie, and they have this like sixth sense to realise when I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And they could just tell, right? Charlie, you know this, yeah?
That's a brilliant thing.
Right, and then they're like, "You had breakfast?" "No, I was doing this." Right, okay, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Like, you go and get something to eat, or we'll get you something to eat, and then we'll pick up on this a little bit later in the day, because it's like, and they could just recognise that. And you're often so absorbed in what you're doing, you don't take that. You kind of compromise yourself. I'm not one of those like breakfasts is for wimp merchants or anything like that. I believe in eating well, and I believe in moving more and eating less and trying to get the balance okay. But equally, I want to enjoy my life as well. So I do think everything should be balanced. So I think from the podcast perspective, Charlie, with Darren here, we've got to know Darren. We've got to know the product, which we're going to hopefully enjoy. Well, I'm going to certainly have a little hit before I go on my run a little bit later. Yeah. When we come back after the break, I think we'll talk about the future for the merchant industry and what that's going to look like in a few years, and what the contractors will be looking for when they're completing their construction projects. I wanted Darren, if we can, maybe give some advice to our younger selves. Think about, looking back at different stages of our own careers, and what advice would we give to some people at all levels, and then we'll wrap it up with just really talking about what the next phase of the WORKFIT journey is going to be like. So, Charlie, we'll see you after the break.
When it comes to bricks, there's only one company to speak with. ET Clay have something for every brick project. With over 400 products across our 2 depots, we are the builder's merchant, brick merchant.
Welcome back to episode 6 of season 8 I have to keep looking up there to make sure I get the seasons right, mate. Season 8 of my podcast, The Foyne Jones Show. I'm joined by Darren Dorman from WORKFIT. Charlie Hula is in the studio. And just over the break there, we were just talking about Charlie's journey, actually, and the importance of work life and managing stress and managing pressure. And I think it's a great time to bring Charlie in, because, Charlie, you've been on an amazing creative journey. You know, you've also been working full-time, part-time and flexi-time. You're committing to so much. How have you found that pressure of growing up, working, running your own business, doing your own thing, being employed again? How's that impacted Mr. Hula?
In honesty, it's probably just been one of the biggest challenges of the last few years of my life, really. I mean, everyone, I think, is striving to try and get the balance right in whatever way works for them. And I'm absolutely no different. I've been trying. Some days you feel like you've got it worked out. Some days you feel like it's not working at all. I feel happy with the choices that I've made at the moment. I think that I'm going away to get some time out and some fresh perspective is a pretty key ingredient, a key part of the process for me. But it's funny because as we've been talking and throughout the first half of the show, it made me think of a story that a friend of mine who's a bit older than me was telling me recently. He had some ill health recently and he's okay, but it basically came down to always to basically how well he'd been eating whilst he was growing up. And he lives a similar lifestyle to me. He's been running around running different businesses and trying to make things work and make things happen. And one day, all of a sudden, he suddenly found himself not very well. He's okay, everything's grand, but he came back to me and we were talking afterwards and he said, you know, those choices came from the interest of making the most efficient decision at each point along as you can. So it is so important. It just goes to show that, you know, we are really, you know, every day's a battle and you've got to really make sure that you can get every minute out of every hour. Yeah. But a lot of the things that we've got in place to do it, as much as I love the full English, it can't be the one every day. So yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting product that we've got and a really needed one as well, actually.
I think, do you know what, Charlie, though, and Darren, you may agree or not agree, but good people can still make some god-awful bad decisions at times, you know, yeah. and we're all guilty of that at different stages. So yeah. I think having the coping mechanisms in play and being able to recognise it, it's why I run so much. You know, I have really creative ideas when I'm running. It clears my head. Sometimes I run quick, sometimes I run slow, sometimes I have a WORKFIT energy shot, Darren, and I get a PB, mate. There you go. Yeah. Look at that. But parking that to one side, being able to recognise how better you'll feel afterwards, we might want to hit the gym, we might want to go swimming. A lot of people here do the sea swimming, you know. Like that, you want motivation. You come down Seaford Beach when the 70 and 80-year-old girls are going like, "You coming in today, love?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just going for a run. It's a bit cold for me." She's like, "We'll look after you." You know, when you hear that for motivation and they're doing their cold water therapy, you're thinking like, "Well, that's not cost you a lot. That's just a bit of time to get here and your mates and you got your flask of tea." We all find our motivations in different way, and people are a challenging product. So, I believe that we could make a difference in this world. I believe we can inspire others. But thank you for sharing that, Charlie, because it's always useful to get different spins on the journey. And Darren, you mentioned before the response from the target market has been really good.
Yeah,
it's been really good. That's got to be so encouraging from you on the startup journey, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not everybody's in Charlie's position where you can just go and take time out. A lot of us get to our age, Pete, we've got all sorts of commitments. And, you know, most contractors have got all sorts, you know, more commitments than anybody, most of all to their customers and their contractors. But they've got to follow that through and fulfil those commitments. That's one thing that's good about most contractors. They will generally do what they say and follow those commitments through. Everyone
here can see that there's an opportunity for this product, right?
Yeah.
We can see that these products will be well received. You found them well received from the people you've been speaking to so far.
Well, it's not just construction, all sorts of industries from healthcare through to automotive, through to trucking. Anybody that active worker needs a bit more support, a bit more energy, wants to be able to take that product while they're on the go. So they can, immunity is a key thing, so they can feel better at the end of the day.
And it is, and it works. It works for everyone in different ways. It works for everyone in different ways. So,
I guess it's trying to make it as easy as possible, because life is full of. Every morning you get up and there's something, even if it's the traffic or the weather, or your kids have got some problem. There's always something that comes to trip you up as soon as you get out of bed.
Yeah.
So it's just a question if you can make things a little bit easier, a little bit more
Some days,
convenient.
Darren, I'll share this with all my listeners. I don't want to get out of bed, mate. I want to put the duvet back on and just roll over.
Yeah.
But then something kicks in.
Well, that's the hardest thing to do, is force yourself to do what you don't want to do, because it's so easy, as you say, to revert to type, or your habits are created so often by your environment. But somehow, if you can force yourself to do that extra bit of effort, like you say, you feel better after a run, but sometimes lose the memory of that. But you do feel better afterwards, and actually forcing yourself to do it, or forcing yourself to take a break and have something to eat. Like you said, so easy to skip breakfast because your mind's focused on what you've got to do and all the pressures, and you've got all these deadlines piling up. But just take that bit of time out. It won't be any detriment to the end product. It just helps, and it'll help you get there better, help you get there more efficient.
That makes it. It's really relevant, that as well. And do you remember Tommy Johnson's podcast? Tommy's and it's quite well themed, actually. Shout out to Tommy. Rock on, Tommy. Top lad, absolute fantastic lad. Director of multi-site locations, but Tommy's a real ambassador for Andy's Man Club, and he does a lot of fantastic work in the North East with Andy's Man Club, supporting men's mental health, and really, really, really good lad, Tommy. He's our age, but he really gives a lot back. He's got a family, and he was talking about how he has to run at like 5 a.m. It's the only time he gets, and he's saying I think he runs at 5:30, and he says, Peter, setting the alarms easy. That's habit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he said, the discipline, he said discipline was setting the alarm, habits getting up and doing it. And it was like, and he nailed it. He said, because ultimately, I know it's going to be cold. I know I'm going to struggle, but I know I'm going to get myself through it. And he does a lot of work to inspire others. And it's someone who I thought he's on last series, and he does so much great work with mental health and men's mental health in particular. Darren, you've recently been, I know you want to cover this, you've been introduced to a charity very, very close to the builders, merchant and construction sector, haven't you?
Yeah, no, it was really interesting. I came across Band of Builders, really, really inspired by what they do. And it's, life gets pretty testing sometimes, but that spoke to them there and just really restored your faith in humanity without trying to write the world off. But it was amazing what those guys are doing. And not just the charity so much, it's actually the contractors themselves, what they were doing and the differences they were making and the selflessness of it. And just the pulling together, absolutely, really, really inspirational. So absolutely amazed at what they're doing, and we would look to support them however we can. Be a excellent movement, and there's also the other side of it, the support in mental health as well, what they're doing that with their big brew. Absolutely fantastic. And this is really just a call out to employers and contractors, ease a bit of the pressure, give people a chance to have a break. It's not all about having breaks all the time. The key thing for the younger generation to realise that life is tough and we've got to get on with it and got to make things happen. But on the flip side as well, you've got to have a bit of time to repair and restore and to just so you can keep going all day, every day. If you're doing it once a week, that's fine. You can go all day long. But if you've got to do the same day after day after day after day, you just get worn out. So a bit of time out is critical, just to make make things a bit easier, take a bit of the pressure
I
off.
think that's a fantastic point. You know, I'm working hard to kind of have a switch off time, and this is by nature, right? I own a recruitment business.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love my podcast, I love this, but my bills get paid from my recruitment business. That's what has to function for me. So by nature, that means I have lots of conversations when people finish work, or I have lots of conversations when people are at the start of their day.
Yeah.
So you make yourself available for that. I've got something which I'm really proud of. I've got a very big positive network on LinkedIn. It's something I've invested a lot of time to keep it where it is. It's why we're here today. But you can get drawn into that. I can be drawn into that on a Sunday. I could be drawn into that on a crazy time. So I'm working hard in my own self to have a switch off time where maybe I'll do some reading. And it's for me, funny enough, rather than the business and self improvement, I'd quite like to like a bit of fiction. I don't mind like a little crime novel. I just drift away. It's just easy. I can do that. But I've always enjoyed reading. So that's something for me which enables me to shut off. Then I find when I've been able to switch down, I come back to something much more positive and much more invigorated. So breaking up a routine is important, and getting those good habits in would help anyone in the working world, wasn't it? It's not just the people in this room, it's anyone we come into contact with.
Yeah, well, it is a question of breaking bad habits and
Yeah.
starting good habits. I find that really difficult. For me, focus on getting the job done is more important than how you do it, if that makes sense. But so I will just plough through a job and forget to eat or drink, and it has a negative impact.
Yeah.
But as you say, if you can take the time out, make sure you're properly energised, got the right nutrition, got the right mood balance, got the right energy levels, right nutritional levels, things will... it's not going to take any of the problems away. It's going to help you cope with them slightly better.
Yeah, fantastic point. And going back to what you said, I'm not that close to bands of builders, other than I see their activity and I applaud their activity. I'm very close to people that are heavily involved with that movement, and they support their, through their awards, through their breakfast mornings, through their events, and when you look at the projects they do, they are changing people's lives.
Yeah, that's what I found. It was just inspirational.
Fantastic.
Just take your hat off to them, really.
Fantastic. So, looking back, Darren, where you are now as an individual, where you are now as a person, and I'm asking all my guests to do that, so this one just not just on you. I've been asking people just to kind of give some advice to people that are starting out in their careers or looking to do something different. What would you wish someone had told your, let's say take your younger self, you're getting into the working world. What advice would have really had an impact on you back then that you've learned as we've got older?
I remember when I was young, at school, the guys came to school and said there's a massive shortage of labour in the industry, and they're still saying that today. And the construction industry has been it's something you fall into without necessarily choosing to go into. But a lot of that's changed. It was quite a hard industry when we first came into it, but it's much more professional now. So despite all that, the key thing about construction for me was how rewarding it is. I've been in and out of it a few times, and the pressure is really, really high sometimes. But what keeps you coming back to it is the job satisfaction. Standing back from a finished project, those tiny incremental changes day after day.
When you're talking about downstairs, when you're talking about, there's nothing beats that when you have created something and it's been constructed, that project's completed. Yeah. That's something quite amazing, I guess. Yeah,
no, even from the design, from the conception, or just having a tiny part in it, you can go by. I remember doing that building 20 years ago, or I remember doing that project. We did, dealt with this thing back then. It really, really, but even just on the day-to-day that you get to the end of the day, it's been a pretty crappy day. But you've just got something inside you, you've achieved something, which you don't get sitting at a desk. And, even if that achievement is just fighting the elements or just fighting yourself or fighting the traffic.
Getting your delivery on time from the merchant.
Yeah. I always like what Margaret Thatcher said, which was probably a bit of a off-topic subject, but she said a good day isn't when you've sat around doing nothing. A good day is when you've had everything to do and done it. And that is what construction gives you, I suppose. You can be up against the odds. And you may not get everything done, but what you do get done, you've tried to do the impossible and you've got somewhere near to doing it. Sometimes you actually do it, which is a great feeling, you know.
Fantastic. And I think from our industry, and I talk to so many different job seekers at different levels, you know, and there are challenges being faced. You know, there are people listening to this show who probably, you know, sadly are facing redundancy. There are people listening to this episode that have been made redundant. There are people looking to move all forward their career and they've faced disappointment, they've faced rejection. And we did a whole series on resilience, didn't we? You know, we did a whole series on that and trying to encourage people to take negative situations and turn them into a positive. One of the areas I'd love to change within my market, certainly within the builders merchant industry, is to encourage employers to look beyond perceived experience and let's see employers giving individuals a chance from other sectors. You know, that having worked in an industry before doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the most employable for a certain job. There's some I see examples of real talented people that are missing out on interviews because they've got maybe too many jobs on their CVs. They've got, you know, different situations like this, and you're going, right, if we put all these people in the room together, you know, the ones with the X factor might be the ones that you're not considering. So how do we change that mindset for not just for now, but for the future? Because we've got so many people. I think the construction industry He's got to compete with media. He's got to compete with fashion. He's got to compete with sport. He's got to compete with TikTok, with influencers, everything there. But it's got to we need it. You know, it's not going to be taken over by AI. So we've got to make it attractive to school leavers and college leavers. So that's a challenge for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can help you on recruitment. That's your speciality. But crossing sectors and that sort of thing, construction is a tough game. You have got to be resilient. And you've got to be physically able. But there's all elements of construction, be it the design end all the way through to the admin side of things. But what underlies any of this is attitude.
Yeah.
It's not a question of your ability so much. Another thing that goes with attitude is creativity. Knowledge is a commodity these days. Knowledge is a commodity, and the only thing that aren't a commodity is attitude and creativity. So if you've got those two, you can pretty well do any job you like. As I say, pulling somebody from a different sector or a different department even in the same business gets a completely different perspective on what you might be trying to do. And it's those different perspectives that have taken the world forward, or industry or innovation forward, is somebody with a different perspective on the same problem. Why haven't we done this before?
Why are we doing the same thing again if it's not going well or it's not working? That's something I say that to my team a lot. I said, well, look, okay, you know, we've tried that, it's not worked. Let's not try it again. Let's try something completely different. Yeah. Or let's stop and go the other way. And that takes a bit of leadership. That takes an element of thinking differently. But I love those two aspects, that if you've got a positive attitude and you can think creatively or be creative, you can succeed. That's a message that resonates with everyone. That's a great angle to have. And the Margaret Thatcher quote, I'm all over it. To be fair, I'm always all over that. So since we've come onto the show, we've spoken about the WORKFIT journey.
Yep.
We've spoken about, you know, where we are now with the business, well, where you are now with the business, and what we're looking forward to in the future. Spoken about the pressures of work, the real pressures of work, you know, the impact it has on people's mental health, the impact it has on people's well-being. And there are soft measures, hard measures, and different aspects that we can all do as businesses. We can look out for each other as well. That's being kind seems to be something which is spoken about a lot, but not always demonstrated.
That's one thing about sorry to interrupt.
No, please do.
The construction industry is probably unique in a few ways. The first one you mentioned about being kind, it's a macho, male-dominated industry and comes from a history of hard knocks.
Yeah.
It's always the way, you give the apprentice a bit of a hard time, which is character building. Not entirely against that. But kindness is quite absent. And I think that comes down to the pressures that are in construction. The other side of it is there's not many sectors in industry that you're on your own. The number of self-employed contractors in the sector, probably no other sector like it, where there's so much pressure on individuals and they've got nothing to fall back on. If they don't get paid, or if it's a rained off day, or materials don't turn up, or something happens, they have to... That pressure hits them in a very real way, and there isn't the support mechanism that is usually in place with most sectors or employees. They can fall back. There's not really even... No, I'm not going to mention that.
Okay. I want to go back to that, though. You mentioned the local builder, the self-employed contractor. In my merchant days, because people know I spent quite a bit of time in the merchants, I remember calling on them accounts, and they were your lower crediting accounts, so your lower spending, and kind of they were there, and you were always chasing the bigger ones, the multi-sites. That's what I'm going to get at. But when I went on my own entrepreneurial, if you call it, or my own business ownership journey, I suddenly switched that so much and had so much respect for those business owners that were doing it with a couple of people or doing it themselves and managing it all themselves, because I actually realised, Charlie, all what they are dealing with. They are dealing with finance, they're dealing with everything. Yeah. And there's no team line. They've got to do it. They've got to make them calls. And those calls are going to maybe determine whether they pay their bills and whether they pay themselves. So I think that's a powerful conversation to have, and actually so relevant to the industry right now, because if we talk about society, we talk about the UK, we talk about the global pressures we're under, you get lost into what's relevant to you, and you kind of see that there's so many challenges out there that. And I go back to the 2 points you make, Darren. I think there's such great points. Having a positive attitude and being able to deal with the pressure and think creatively going to help anyone in their future self. So that's what we're going to say to a younger you, and that's what me and Charlie are going to say to a younger us. So it's been a brilliant episode. I'm going to ask you, Darren, is there anything you'd like to close the show off talking about WORKFIT in any way at all?
We're just trying to make the industry a better place with... something that makes people's lives a bit easier, makes people's lives a bit more tolerable in an intolerable environment, high pressure. But if we can make anybody's life a bit better, a bit more comfortable, a bit more efficient, a bit more effective, a little bit of sweetness, it's going to make it so much better for everybody.
And you know what? We said we needed to leave you. We wanted you to leave this studio smiling, Darren. When you said the word sweetness, you started smiling. So what a fantastic way to wrap up the episode. It's been the first podcast for you, and Charlie and I always want to say thank you so much, because you've taken the time to drive down and be part of the studio. The studio experience is what the Foyne Jones shows have always been about. We've got some virtual recordings coming up soon, so we've got some virtual recordings to release. This episode, I think, has been it's been a start-up journey, it's been an industry journey, and we've spoken about making the construction industry and the merchant industry a better place with some positive attitude and some creativity. That is how we're going to end today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to our sponsors, ET Clay Products, and big up David Blitz, who is back running again. He's back after his ankle injury, and he's trying to get my times and his park runs. So we've got a bit of a challenge on. We'll see you next episode. Charlie, I've got it down here. It's a bit of an emotional goodbye for me for a little while, mate. You're going to be working remotely on the other side of the world, Mr. Hula, aren't you?
That's right, mate. But I'm never too far away, and I'll be back again in town before you know it.
Can't wait to have you back, mate. Thank you so much for listening. That was the end of episode 6 of season 8 of the Foyne Jones Show, when we're working with you from the ground up. Always a pleasure, never a chore.